Hey guys, Francis here. I'm about to hop on a property management call with a client that has a portfolio of real estate and owns a brokerage, a real estate brokerage, but is looking to actually transition and start managing his own real estate assets so that he has ultimate control for his asset base, managing the property management aspects of his assets, and then create a stream of income because now you have a separate company formed, vertical integration, you have a separate company formed to make that company profitable by managing third-party real estate. So stand by, let's see how this call goes. I can hear you. How are you? How are you, David? It's been a while. Oh, it's good to hear from you, man. You know, it's been. When did I speak on the podcast? Yeah. So before all this craziness that hit the world, and I know you have kids too, right? So how are you guys dealing? How are you dealing with it? Yeah. 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 Yeah, you know, I mean, sort of similar. We had some adjusting to do, but we adopted those changes like right up front. So we're into a lot of sports. My wife and I actually do a lot of sports. We do yoga and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, but we adopted the changes right up front. So, like for example, we said, you know, kids are at home. We normally used to, like, we were part of a yoga studio that was in our community and it's sort of embedded in that whole community socially as well. So, but we made the change and said, listen, we obviously can't go to the class because they're closed, but we started doing classes at home. And so we made an agreement with the kids. We said, listen, guys, every day we'll work, all of us will work because we all have jobs and we all have stuff going on in our lives. We'll work till 4 o'clock, and then at 4, we're going to shut off and we're going to either, you know, take a yoga class, go outside, you know, take the dog for a walk, you know, run, you know, skateboard, you name it. We're going to do something that's active. And that's outdoors. And so we did that right from day one. In fact, funny enough, the kids were always wanting to skateboard. So we ordered skateboards for them, like right up front, like probably a week into this thing happening. And they've become like phenomenal on skateboards. Yeah, so, you know, just little things like that. And then internally for work, there's been things I've been wanting to do. I think, you know, I wrote a book on real estate, right? Job plus real estate equals wealth, yeah. There was a guy in New Hampshire who was an investor that I actually helped build up his portfolio of real estate. And he's an author. You know, he's authored several books. And he's been on me to write a second book. And I'm going back 5 years. He's always been like, Francis, we got to write a book on real estate, co-host it and write it. So he called me up probably a week into this and said, Francis, if you say no to this, then we may as well scrap the idea because we're never going to do it. He's like, we should do a book. Like once a week, let's get on a call and just, you know, we'll record the call and we'll create our book. And so sure enough, we did that. And I'll tell you, Dave, we're done with our recordings. We're not done with the book, but we're done with the recordings. So, I mean, we're going to go into phase 2. So it'll probably be a year until the book comes out. So it's actually, the name of the book is, I'll reveal it on, early. It's called Don't Quit Your Day Job. So it's sort of a spin off of the Job plus Real Estate Equals Wealth, but it's more geared into what you're going to face in your day-to-day activities as you get into real estate. It's that unwritten, like, what people don't talk about. Like, they talk about the profits, they talk about cap rates, but this is talking about stuff that you don't really know, like people don't always talk about. Like, sort of what's going to happen on this call, property management, right? No one talks about, well, who's going to actually manage the asset, And if you're going to manage it yourself, what kind of things do you need to think about? Yeah, sure. Oh, I'd love that. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So I was excited to see your message. You are looking at, now you already own a brokerage, but it's on the real estate side, right? Okay. 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 So decent amount, yeah. 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 The investment side of it. And not to mention the traditional agent and broker, and I hate to say, and I say this respectfully, but is sort of a dime a dozen, because there's a lot of part-time people getting into it. So you're, from a competition standpoint, there's so many people doing that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Arm to it. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that, David. I think you gave me too much credit when you said, I wanna share the idea with smart people. But I will say, I mean, sort of at a very, very high level, I will say that the reason I love property management is that once you this is going to sound sort of deceptive, and it's not intended to, but when you run property management, you control all the other facets of what goes on in that investment and with the owner. So I mean, I got when I managed the property, within X amount of months, I would have the owners, obviously build up the trust with me, and want to say, hey, Francis, I want to build up my portfolio. Can you represent me on the buy side of more buildings? And flipwise, when they want to sell or thin out their portfolio, it was an automatic understanding that I would get the listing. So from a marketing standpoint, for my brokerage activities, it was almost non-existent. I didn't really even need to focus on that. The mothership was property management. If I did a good enough job on property management, all the other business just trickled in. That's really where the beauty was, right? Now, our arms was brokerage. I actually didn't conduct the brokerage in-house. I subbed the brokerage out, but I focused on the referral commissions coming in. Right, just because I didn't want to really thin myself in my mind on, selling. And also for me at the time, I thought there was a little bit of a conflict of interest, which really there isn't, but I wanted to be focused 100% on the management side of it. But the other arms was we had a mini construction company within the management company that did all the rehabs, that did all the capital projects, right? And so it's an automatic, you're controlling that, you're getting the bids, you're automatically getting that work, the Oh my God, yes. So the most profitable entities, David, was the construction management, right? Which is basically all the rehab work, the unit turns, and then the routine maintenance, right? And we can dig into how I had those all structured, right? The second most profitable was the leasing arm, right? So every time I leased a unit, there was a fee that was paid, right? And then the property management was basically a percentage of the way I did it was a percentage of your gross collected income. And that was my steady sort of stream of income, which had a break-even point, and we can talk about where that break-even point is from a unit's perspective. But that was more, I kind of viewed that as my, that pays the bills, right, and keeps my company afloat. It's a recurring stream of income, and it's a dependable stream of income. So it's always going to come. It's just on a recurring basis. The other two, the leasing and the construction, was more on a up and down, feast or famine. But depending on the number of units you had. Oh yeah, big time. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm actually good. I got a good half an hour, 40 minutes with you. So yeah, yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hmm. Buy it. Yeah. No, no, it's actually you gave me enough time as you were bubbling that question through, and I have my response. So here's my thought on that, right? So the question was, you're starting at grassroots, right? So I'll sort of answer it in pieces parts. You're starting at grassroots. Should you work at grassroots from ground up? My answer is overwhelmingly, absolutely yes. Right? You don't want to, like, I'm a big fan of Don't Quit Your, I mean, hence the name of the books too, right? And all books, right? That's sort of my philosophy is don't quit your day job. Why put yourself at risk on a venture that you know is going to succeed? So I don't want to say you know it's not going to succeed, but there is a ramp up time. Right? So if you're already an agent that's already making a stream of income, that's already got clients that you're representing, you know, from a buy or sell perspective, kick in this initiative to run property management. It's only going to bolt on to your existing life, if you will, right? And to the point about hard costs, honestly, David, you'll be shocked. Like, property management is one of those, and I'm one of those. Like, when I opened up my second office in the Seacoast in New Hampshire, I literally remember I rented space and I asked the building owner, it was one of these massive mill buildings, and I asked the building maintenance person, I said, hey, can I get access to your storage basement? And he said, that's a weird question, Francis. Why would you want access to our storage basement? I said, because I can imagine with a massive mill building like this, and where you guys are renting small offices, there must be a ton of furniture down there that you want to get rid of. Right? And I don't want to go out and buy brand new furniture. I'm going to, like, roll up my sleeves and dust off that dirty furniture as long as you're okay with me having it, and I'm going to move it up to my office. What I'm trying to say is that I'm a roll up your sleeves, build it from, minimum, and ramp up as necessary. So property management, the only real expense that you're going to have, which will be a recurring expense, is your software, right? And your time. Okay, so I went through 3 iterations of a software. I started off with Tenant Pro, which is no longer in existence, right? Tenant Pro was, just to go back to date myself, 2005, 2006, where it was loaded on a server in the office, and when you did, do a bank reconciliation, and you hit the button to do a bank reconciliation, you see the spinning wheel for like half a day as it's reconciling the bank registers, right? So, because it was communicating with your internal server. Then, the whole cloud-based service came along. We moved to a product called Rent Manager, which I really liked, and they're still in existence today, right? And I would highly recommend them as well, Rent Manager. The third iteration, and this is just before I sold the management company, the third iteration was I went through a full automation initiative, which I would recommend. Let's make sure we have a side conversation about automation. But I went through a full automation initiative just to clean up the office, because I started the business in 2006. Around the 2017-18 mark, I said, yeah, you know what? We've been in existence for 11 years, and I don't feel like outside of that software change, I feel like we're getting a little clunky. And like as far as, Excel spreadsheets, and I feel like just we've got some old systems that I got to refreshen. And we went through an automation, I actually hired a person, an automation expert, came in and basically automated all the simple mundane tasks that we were doing and made it automated, and actually eliminated a bunch of positions by doing that. And as part of that, we moved from Rent Manager into a product called AppFolio. Yeah. I would say they've got a bunch of automation initiatives. It's cloud-based, so you can access it from wherever. I know the software pretty well, so I can even help train you on that. And there's a couple of nice other additions, like you can have, depending on how you grow, you can have your tenants have an app. I mean, a lot of these guys are coming out with it now, but the tenants have an app, the owners have an app, and they've got different portals that they can get into. So there's a lot of nice functionalities with it, So automation, I just want to hit this before I forget this, right? One thing I would do, and I consult with a lot of people. Actually, I have someone who I'm building a property management company here in Buffalo with your exact scenario. Except he's not a broker. He's a property owner he's sort of like my story back in the day. He owns 60 units of him by himself, and he's not satisfied with property management here, the local offerings. And he says he's actually an engineer by background as well. So he's hired me to help him build a management company from scratch, but he wants it to be minimal time involvement, from his standpoint, just because he doesn't want to really focus too much on it, but he wants to build vertical integration. Yeah, in regards to automation, so I look at, when I built my business, right, it was 2006, we had whatever automation was available at the time, right? It's amazing how quick technology moves. But, things like spreadsheets and, conference calls, and those were the things of the early 2000s, right? Now a lot of it is DocuSign, making sure that when you do lease signings, you're doing everything, on, you send a management agreement, it's all on your phone, you send it, your recipient is probably reading it online, as opposed to 2006, where we would schedule a meeting to sign a management contract. They would physically come into my office. I would sit there and go over my management contract with them. They'd redline the management contract, ask a bunch of questions. It goes to my attorney, goes to their attorney. Oh my God, 3 weeks later, I'm closing the transaction, right? So my time to close was so much longer, and I was like, oh my God, why am I even doing this? But it's all on the inherent design, right? So if you design it with the right mindset right from the get-go, saying, this is my current lifestyle. I have kids, I'm married, I'm very involved in my kids' sports, but I'm also, from a professional standpoint, I'm also involved in real estate, and I'm meeting potential sellers, buyers, and I get the question of, hey, David, do you manage property, right? I don't want to say, oh yeah, I do. Why don't we meet at a coffee shop? Like, you want to be able to have that automation up and ready, where you can just say, you know what, let me review the building. Here's, whatever your process is, and we can develop that process. And you send over the management contract. It comes to them on their phone. They DocuSign, or a version of DocuSign, accept it, comes into you, and then what are the next steps you're going to do, right? So everything has to be process driven. To be able to right, because that way your incremental costs of building and running that company are almost non-existent, because it's you to begin with, right? You to begin with, and then you're scaling up and you're adding people as you need, or you're adding technology as you need. Oh, and then here's one more response to your question about, should I, find by acquisition? Should I grow by acquisition or should I grow by organic? I'm not gonna say either or. I'm gonna say grow by organic, and here's why. The only strength, because when you buy an existing company, you're basically buying their book of business. Right? At least in the property management world, you're buying their book of business. Now, the only added benefit is that you'd be buying their systems, right? But what if I sold you my property management company with almost 500 owners in 2017 with a whole bunch of antiquated systems? You'd be buying my Excel spreadsheets, and you have to go and have a conference call with all these people. You're buying old systems. You could be buying tired owners who are not happy. So I almost say, listen, you build it from ground up. Figure out who your right client is, because your right client might not be the client that signed up with that company you're about to acquire, and then you build it up from that stage. Does that make sense? Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a question back to you, David. Like, are you looking at property management and enhancing your real estate brokerage business, or vice versa? Or is it to get into the investing world and help sort of your own internal portfolio grow? And by vertical integration, you also want to have your properties managed by your own management company. I guess I'm trying to figure out what your motivation on this is. Mm-hmm. Into the... Okay. 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 Yeah. Yeah. For everything else. Okay, so I'll tell you the response to people, you getting that question all the time, and I'm not big on the universe is providing you with something, but in this case, I will tell you, the fact that you're getting that question all the time means that the universe is saying something like, hey, Dave, like, you should consider this. I mean, you're in this space already. Why not do it, You'll be amazed, David, at the opportunities that are presented to you by sheer being the property manager. I've bought REO assets, I've bought foreclosures, I've bought estate properties. I've played the role of a mortgage, getting commissions from mortgage brokers. I mean, I played every single role that you can imagine because I was in the role of property manager,